Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, if there's one organisation that's been competing with UKIP in the struggle to settle on a leader, it's the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. It just cannot break free of distracting headlines about itself and its personnel problems, rather than headlines about the substance of its work. The chair, Alexis Jay, today tried to clarify the inquiry's ambitions and the limits to those ambitions. But the legacy of the last chair, Lowell Goddard, lives on in the form of argument and recrimination involving the Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, and her permanent secretary. What did they know about Lowell Goddard and her flaws, and when? Well, our political editor, Nick Watt, has been following the row.
It is one of the most ambitious inquiries in British history, but it has been plagued by disputes at almost every stage. Today, the three people who have the future of Britain's national child abuse inquiry in their hands moved to draw a line under this most troubled of investigations. But first, remember this?
Order. Statement the Secretary of State for the Home Department, Secretary Theresa May.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I would like to make a statement about the sexual abuse of children.
Theresa May has enormous political capital invested in this inquiry after she overcame some scepticism to set it up and then had to appoint 3 consecutive chairs after the first 2 stumbled. With questions raging about the resignation of her third chair, Dame Lowell Goddard, the Prime Minister is keen to focus on the main purpose of the inquiry.
Dame Lowell Goddard resigned shortly after the Home Secretary and I had talked about these issues. But let's remember, the point of the inquiry is that there are many people who have suffered from child abuse, who over the years have felt that their voice was being ignored. Nobody was listening to them. They deserve justice.
Until today, this was the government's official explanation for the abrupt resignation of Goddard on the 4th of August.
Ultimately, she found it too lonely. She was a long way from home, and she decided to step down. That's as far as I have. That's all the information I have about why she decided to go.
But last week, The Times reported that this man, Mark Sedwill, her most senior official, was alerted 6 days earlier to criticism of Goddard's management skills and her allegedly racist views. Today, the Home Secretary offered a fresh explanation.
Dame Lowell had not spoken to me about her reasons, so I relied on the letter she had sent to the committee. In her letter, she said she was lonely and felt that she could not deliver, and that was why she stepped down. Dame Lowell has strongly refuted the allegations about her, and the only way we could understand properly why she resigned would be to hear from Dame Lowell herself. To echo any further allegations, which are now likely to be the subject of legal dispute, would have been entirely inappropriate.
But that original appearance before the Select Committee may still cause trouble for the Home Office. Newsnight understands that there is unease amongst some MPs that Mark Sedwill sat in silence as Rudd made her statement last month, which had to be clarified in Parliament today. One Whitehall observer said that Sedwill, who is highly regarded by the Prime Minister, faces a decisive day when he appears before the committee tomorrow. As MPs debated the inquiry, along the river its new chair issued a rare public statement. This was short on specifics, but Professor Alexis Jay appeared to nod towards a scaling back of its work.
If we were to pursue the traditional public hearing model that people associate with inquiries of this kind to the thousands and thousands of institutions in England and Wales, we would fail. So there is no possibility that we can do that. However, we will apply it to some, but that will not be the main ways in which we will take this inquiry forward.
The Prime Minister, the Home Secretary and the new inquiry chair will be hoping that some answers into a dark past may be provided by the end of the decade. But for now, questions will continue to hang over this inquiry.
Nick Watt, well, as you heard, tomorrow the Home Secretary and her permanent secretary will appear before the Commons Home Affairs Select Committee. One of its members and a candidate for chairmanship of it. Chuka Amuna is here now. Evening to you.
Evening.
Do you think Amber Rudd unreasonably misled the committee when she met before and said, you know, Lowell Goddard resigned, she resigned because she was lonely and isolated and wanted to go home?
Well, first of all, we've got the permanent secretary appearing in front of us tomorrow. He will not be with the Home Secretary. And secondly, when the Home Secretary gave evidence to us on the committee, she was referring to the reasons that were given to her by Dame Goddard as to why she left. Now, whether at that point she knew more, I don't know. There may, of course, be legal reasons why she wasn't able to go into that and speculate as to why Dame Goddard had gone. But in a way, look, Dame Goddard is gone now. I think for the survivors, I represent constituents who form part of the biggest survivors group. There are a number of issues that go beyond the head of the inquiry. One is the extent to which the controlling mind of the inquiry is impacted or influenced by the Home Office. We know that before 1971, the Home Office had a role in inspecting and approving the heads of children's homes where a lot of these awful things happened. So if you've got an inquiry that is dominated by Home Office personnel, there's potential conflict there. The second thing about the current chair, I don't think anyone's got an issue with her own abilities, but she was in the social work profession she has been in it for over 3 decades, which amongst some survivors is an issue. Right. Now, we shouldn't sweep that under the carpet. That needs to be dealt with.
And then there's are you suggesting, I want to go back to the Lowell Goddard.
Please,
Are you suggesting maybe it needs another chair? Alexis Jay isn't the right chair.
I'm not suggesting that, no.
But then why raise the fact that she's a social worker? If you're effectively saying anyone who's a social worker is kind of unsuitable because some survivors won't trust a social worker.
And that's a fair question. You say, why raise that? I'm not raising that. Right. The survivors are raising that. Right. And they are, as the Prime Minister quite rightly said in your clip, they have got to be of primary concern. And if they're saying that's an issue for them, you can't pretend it away as an issue. You have to deal with it. Now, I think there are ways you can...
At some point, we've just got to get on with this thing, don't we? And I can't keep changing the head to find another one.
Absolutely, and I think people share that view. I think a couple of good things that came out of the statement that was made by Professor Jay, and of course she's appearing in front of the Home Affairs Select Committee tomorrow, is one, that she wants to have this done by the end of 2020. That's good. And two, that one of the kind of controversies coming out of the departure of Dame Goddard was that she suggested that you should remove the focus on the past and just focus on the present and the future. Now, I would say that would be wholly unacceptable to my constituents. You know, what happened to them may have happened in the past, but they live with it every day and will live with it into the future. There is also an issue here about resourcing as well. One of the things Dame Goddard had said was she suggested that there'd been some under-resourcing of her inquiry, and we've subsequently found out that actually the inquiry refunded the Home Office to the tune of £2.5 million in the last financial year. And again, this goes to why it would be good to have Judge Goddard actually give evidence to the Home Affairs Select Committee about how she left and why.
We're out of time.
Sure.
Very, very quickly. Do you think the Home Office knew about problems with Lowell Goddard before the end of July, you know, in the time when it all suddenly exploded and she stepped down? Do you think they were sitting on that and they didn't want to say anything about it because Theresa May had put her in place, perhaps?
I don't know the answer to that question. Of course, this will be a line of inquiry. That will be a line of inquiry for the Home Affairs Select Committee with the Permanent Secretary tomorrow.
Thanks very much indeed.